Welcome to Friday 15 with Master B2B. My name is Brian Beck. I'm here with my partner in, I don't know about crime, but partner in something here, Andy Hoar, my co-founder of our Master B2B Thought Leadership Series and eCommerce, B2B e-commerce community. So Andy, here for another Friday 15. Welcome. Nice warm day in the middle of summer here.
Yeah, good day, good topic. Let's jump in.
Yeah, no doubt. So folks, thanks again for tuning into our Friday 15. And as usual, we're going to go right to our breaking news. Andy, Perplexity. Check this out. Some people are defending Perplexity after Cloudflare named it and shamed it. This sounds very like, I don't know, TikTok-y or something. But anyway, what the heck is this about? Please tell.
Yeah, so we touched on this a couple of weeks ago, and this is this amazing battle taking place beneath the surface that most people are completely unaware of, but everybody is essentially affected by. So here's the story. We all know what Perplexity is. It's like ChatGPT or OpenAI. It's one of the 4 or 5 major LLMs. Cloudflare is a company that optimizes people's websites. So think about it this way. Cloudflare represents the content creators, and Perplexity is essentially one of these answer engines. And so here's the scenario. Let's say that you're big into Roth IRAs and you write a site. You have a site where you create all this content about how to convert a Roth IRA, what the right timing is, et cetera. And you spend all your time writing this and you have this great website with all this content. Well, Perplexity or Gemini, which is Google's AI engine, will just come along, sweep up all that information from your site, and then use it to inform its answer engine, such that when Joe Schmo goes to Google and types in, what's the best way to do a Roth IRA conversion? It'll just tell you the answer, right? That's great for Google. That's great for the person looking for the answer, but it's not great for you who spent all your time putting this content up on a website, which Google basically just stole from you to answer a question. And the way Google's going to monetize that is with a subscription.
Right. Interesting.
Same way that ChatGPT does it. Okay, so here's the problem. Now content creators are pushing back. Right. And they're saying, wait a minute, if I'm not going to monetize this content, I don't want your robots coming to my site, vacuuming up all information. So Cloudflare has made it possible to block the answer engines from scraping the sites.
Interesting.
Now, some interesting, and so what happened here was Perplexity actually went around that. They set up a fake bot and they tried to get onto these sites that had said, denied them access. And so there's this Cloudflare named and shamed them and said, wait a minute, you're cheating. We blocked you and you're trying to break into the house, even though we locked the front door. So there's been some interesting stats that have come up. There's one on the screen right now. It says, for the first time in the internet's history, bot activity currently outstrips human activity online.
That's incredible.
So AI traffic is accounting for 50% of all the traffic on the site. And really, this is surprising. Most of the activity is coming from LLMs, but the report also found that malicious bots now make up 37% of all internet traffic. So
that's crazy.
It used to be humans doing this. Now it's these bots, and some chunk of them are malicious. Now, here's the other side to this. If I'm a user and I'm at Google's site and I want to get an answer, I actually want these sites to be scraped. So if you go back to that screen for a moment, there was a person who posted on X, I want Perplexity to visit any public content on my behalf when I give it a request or a task, because increasingly we're going to have agents that are going to go out and get information just for us. And if we're getting blocked everywhere, then the roads are all closed and nobody can drive. So this is a fascinating developing story, but there's this fight going on beneath the surface. And we'll talk about this maybe in the next week or two, but some of the big content providers are signing agreements.
Yeah, I saw that.
The OpenAIs and the Perplexities of the world to say, hey, we're going to license our content, which is probably where this is going. But if you're that person who writes a small website about Roth IRA conversions. Are you going to sign a deal with OpenAI?
No, but there might be a model there somewhere at some point, Andy, where there's some licensing or, if this becomes a standard. What's fascinating about all this is that the world is changing in front of us, has everything to do with marketing. We're going to talk in a minute about the gig economy and how this is also playing into that, right? So now we'll keep our eyes on this, folks. It's a fascinating topic and we'll keep following it. Andy, thanks for finding that article. Today, we're talking about, is the gig economy coming to digital, B2B digital? Part deux. That's two in French because, hey, why not?
Say it in Spanish, Brian.
Dos, senor. Okay, I can speak Spanish. But what we thought, this is such a great topic because we were so surprised, last week when we posted this LinkedIn poll and it said 60% of you who are here listening think that B2B pros will not hold full-time employed roles by 2030. 60%. That means, your senior level ecom, VP of ecom is going to be what? AI? It's going to be a multi-company fractional. 26% of you said that. Contractor, 17% of you said that. 17% said AI is going to be doing the job. So fascinating, and we wanted to, get some reactions, but ultimately this was, it's what we're seeing here is a rise of a worker with what is being coined super agency, meaning they have multiple jobs in parallel, and they're using AI, and it unlocks this whole AI unlocks a whole new type of career here, where companies can have AI agents or individuals can have AI agents working for them. So it's a virtual team led by a human, and anyway, so we wanted to actually bring in someone who could speak to this, who's living the gig life. And so Mr. John Pehler here is going to join us. John is a strategic advisor. He comes from a long career at seriously large and influential companies, Rexel, Caterpillar. John, a long career at Grainger. And now he is living the gig life. John, welcome to our podcast. Oh, and you're on mute. Let's unmute you. We got to do that. Yeah, I didn't help us there. You have to unmute you. There you go.
There we go. AI didn't help at all. I think it threw me off is when you started speaking in Spanish and French. But hey, I'm here.
Okay. Seguimos en español.
No, thanks for the opportunity to come and talk about this. It's something that's near and dear to my heart. And honestly, 3 years ago, I had no idea that this was going to be of interest to me, because after leaving Rexel, I was looking for my next full-time gig. But I had a great friend who pulled me into his company to help consult on a few of his client engagements. And I quickly realized a few things. First of all, fractional opportunities were real. There were people that were already doing that work and that were making a phenomenal living and having a really great impact. I realized that I enjoyed the type of work, right? Helping guide organizations in many different situations all at once. I think my experience applied to a broader set of organizations than I expected. And that was not just looking at distribution, but looking across, the manufacturing landscape. And there were some amazing companies that I may not have been, considered. I may not have considered working for, and maybe they wouldn't even have considered me, hiring me for a full-time role. So the gig economy has been absolutely fantastic and has helped me set up E3 Omni Advisory and Consultancy to really create value in this space that we all love and adore.
So John, 20 years ago, we were talking beforehand about this. Could you have done what you're doing now 20 years ago? And what do you think is going to look like a couple of years from now?
Yeah, it's an awesome question, because I think that we could have done something similar to what we're doing today, but it would not have been nearly as efficient, quite honestly. I think 20 years ago, we would have been looking at things like, how do I actually how do I create static templates in order to try to become more efficient at work? I probably would have created a master set of PowerPoint slides that I would be pulling things from to use as a starting point. But that wasn't, I don't think doing it at the scale would have been available to us now. And it's not just because of AI. It's also because of the fact that we are so interconnected, right? I've got resources at so many companies across the United States, Canada, Mexico, and even into Europe. These are people that I used to work with that I can interact with on a moment's notice, right? And so that allows me to actually be out there without having to actually, churn through all the heavy-handed work that would have come along with that. What's it going to look like in a few years? Well, I really think that we are going to be not just considering more fractional resources and opportunities at executive or leadership levels. I think that you're going to see it at the individual contributor level, because it's going to afford them really the same thing that we have today, which is like, let's go from company to company. Let's create real value now. So they don't have to be 40, 50, 60 hours a week at one company. I think they can actually, be 10 hours a week at 4 different companies. And I've seen a lot of that so far.
So you agree, John, with that 60% figure we shared? Do you think it will it move away from permanent? I mean, 60%, that's a huge number.
Yeah, I don't know that it'll move away from permanent for everyone, but I think there will be resourceful individuals that will leverage this and want to do this, right? But let's be honest, it's not without challenges, Andy and Brian. There are some concerns with actually being a gig worker, and we know some of them are things like, where's your next gig going to come from?
It's a big one, yeah.
Right? I think it really is, but I think it's also, there's other things like context switching. Right. I used to go context switching was difficult when I would bounce between, the product management organization, the merchandising organization, the UX team, the engineering team, but that was all within the same organization. Now I'm actually bouncing between all those same organizations, and I'm doing it between a $9 billion company, a $50 million company, a $400 million company. And I'm doing it between CEOs and managers of e-commerce and every level in between. So that's one of the challenges that I see. So I don't think that's going to be for everybody. So I don't know that the 60% number holds up, but I do think that we're going to see a lot more than we see today.
So John, talk to us a little bit about how you're using AI agents, for example, to puffer fish yourself, scale yourself, because I think one thing we'd agree on, 20 years ago, you could have probably done something somewhere, but it would have taken a team of people, which might have, by the way, made it so cost prohibitive as to not be a reasonable undertaking, right? Now,
absolutely,
you can use technology and AI agents to do some of the stuff you're doing. So talk to us a little bit about how you're doing that and how you're scaling yourself with AI agents.
Yeah, when you start thinking about the resources that you would have actually needed in order to run a company, right, and work on 7 different engagements at once, right? You're probably going to need a project coordinator. You're going to need an administrative assistant. You're going to need a team of people to actually help you with, sending out invoices and getting payables and things like that. So all the administrative work was going to require resources. Now, it might have only required a fraction of a resource, as we see a lot of these organizations popping up, but it would have required additional people and additional connectivity in order to be able to do that. The vast majority of that can be automated. And in fact, I've created my own LLM, right, with my branding, with my tone, plus real examples of my work, right? Which, yes, I had to do the work once, generally speaking, twice on its own, but then I can actually feed it. But it's also, there's a lot of great data and information that's out there that you can actually start consuming in order to build that. And I think the rise of agentic AI has been really insightful, not just in terms of what people are interested in doing, but also in order to help people like me, because it supports me with a lot of the administrative work, right? I don't just, type in one prompt and say, this is what I need. I guided my agent to ask me questions like, what do you need? How many hours did it work? What's the rate for this project, right? And so it's spitting out some of that information that I would have needed to require either my own time or somebody else in order to be able to do that.
That's fascinating. John, double clicking into some of the stuff you said earlier, and I agree with you on the AI side. You talked about one of the key challenges that, a lot of folks, when they think about becoming a gig worker, they come off of a, 20 years or whatever as an e-com exec, and you want to go out in the field and say, I got all this knowledge. I have some relationships. I get my first 2 clients based on relationships that I know. Right. And I'm out and running and I'm like, this is great. I got freedom. I can, work from Tahiti or whatever. And, from my boat and just have fun and, work when I want to and make my own hours. And then they run out of clients and they go, uh-oh,
what do I do now?
What do I do now? So how do you navigate that? I mean, to me, that's one of the big things people don't realize when they go into this. The gig economy doesn't just require you as an expert to work and to have AI around you to help with administrative things, but also be thinking about business development, marketing. How do you use AI for that? I mean, how do you do that? And what kinds of things do you do to help continue the flow of work?
Yeah, I think leveraging AI is paramount in this, just because there's an opportunity to make us more efficient as well as to extend our reach. But I don't want to discount some of the basic analog type of things that you need to do from a business development standpoint. And obviously, leveraging your existing network. So that's your friends and family, right? Talking to your former colleagues. And I'm fortunate because my network, as I mentioned earlier, is spread all throughout the industry, right? I can't go anywhere without actually driving by a company that one of my former leaders or someone who worked with me is actually working at. But I would also say, make sure you're out there, right? Participate at events like Master B2B. I mean, maybe that would be a good, event to go, attend. I mean, it's all around the country. There's great opportunities where leaders are coming together to talk about their problems, and they like talking about it with someone who's done something similar, even if it's not the same. So leverage those capabilities to grow your network, but also do speaking engagements. Let's get on stage and present. Let's write white papers, right? Let's do the things that get your name out there that help people want to reach out to you. And then I also do proactive reach out for example, on LinkedIn. If I see that a CEO of a company is actually hiring a chief digital officer or a VP of e-commerce, right? I reach out and say, hey, that's fantastic. I'm glad to see that you're, going to be either backfilling that role or hiring somebody new. What if we could actually work together to actually come up with a plan so when you hire that person, that she or he can actually hit the ground running? And so I spend a lot of 3-month, 4-month, 6-month engagements just as I play that interstitial role between where they were and where they're going, so that they can then accelerate into their value realization planning.
So and you've taken this.
Oh, go ahead, Brian.
You've taken this to a whole nother level, John. I mean, you're part of our Master B2B Nexus program. You're an expert advisor. I mean, that's kind of what you're getting to, right? Is being involved. In our Nexus program is a good example of that. I mean, you're out there, consulting, putting your expertise forward a bit to allow people to understand that you are in fact very experienced, a thought leader, et cetera. So people don't know you can then grasp your value, right? And I think that's critical. And often people overlook that. Go ahead, Andy. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, I just wondered.
Yes, you did. You did mean to interrupt him. Let's be honest.
I did.
Right. Well, we're out of time. So the question I have for you is, do you find though that companies, especially the senior leadership, and let's face it, some of the senior leadership, especially in B2B, we love them, but let's just say maybe some of their ideas are a little on the archaic side. Do you find that they don't understand this opportunity in that, that's a great point. We're going to hire somebody. It could take 6 to 9 months to hire the right person. What are you going to do for 6 to 9 months? Just put the whole company on hold or forget about digital? But do you find that people get that?
I don't. I find that it's very common that people still don't get it. Right. And I think we've talked about that in the past, that leadership is not quite there. They're chasing the next shiny object, or they're trying to figure out, where do they want to open their next branch, especially from a distribution perspective, right? They're thinking about which sales reps I want to add, which those are all great things to do, but you're missing an opportunity to help, get out there and be forward thinking. And so if I were to pick, one thing here that, kind of articulates the fact that they don't, it's data is still one of the fundamental issues that is impacting distribution and manufacturing, right? And is preventing them from actually realizing their overall value and realizing it quickly. And so I think that we still need to guide executives, especially non-digital natives, right? To understand that you have to invest at the data level and at the business process level before you want to actually go out and buy that platform. Otherwise, all you're going to do is set yourself up for an extended implementation, because you're going to have to pause the work likely in order to actually go do that work anyhow.
Can you give us one example, John, to maybe double clicking on the data piece of a company you've worked with, like that, where as a gig worker, you've come in and you're not permanent, so you don't have the maybe the long-term, people know you're not there forever, but what is that whole kind of role help? Can you give us an example of a project or impact you've made?
Yeah. So oftentimes my work is actually pre-platform selection, or it's actually, pre having even a full strategy. So I've just completed a 90-day engagement with a phenomenal organization where what we were doing is we were literally setting up the roadmap for the next several years worth of work. And that started by taking a look at, hey, what's your current process? What's your maturity level on the overarching curve? What do you aspire to be, right? Because you may not aspire to be, leading edge in every single one of the categories that we're analyzing. But then let's build a roadmap to get you, to that state, and realize that's not going to occur in 90 days of execution. That's going to require several years worth of work. But the 90 days is to prep them to be able to do that and to pull on a couple of quick wins, right? Let's show them value realization right out of the gate. And so let's build a couple of new business processes. Let's make sure that we understand the requirements that you actually need for the various systems that are going to consume. And that can all prep us for when we're ready to, select a platform. And we can get value out of that now.
Well, and the nice part about not being part of the organization is you can look objectively at those things, and you can sometimes I found you can call out things that, the internal management might be saying, but they're not, the rest of the organization is not listening until someone outside the organization actually says it. So, that's great stuff. Yeah.
And if I can add to that, real quickly, because one of the other really cool things is helping to elevate the concerns that the organization has to the leadership team, right? So I've been able to take the concerns of the team and say, here are the things that they're worried about. So yeah, they're happy that you recognize the problem, but they don't know that you're going to have the fortitude to actually make the changes required in order to be able to generate the value there.
Right. That's right. Well, great. Well, we're coming up on time here. Andy, any final questions for Mr. Pehler before we wrap this Friday 15?
I think you made a really interesting point there at the end about, you demonstrated it maybe advertently or inadvertently about this is where wisdom really comes into play. Because you can do a search on ChatGPT and it can give you a step-by-step process for doing something, but that isn't a plan.
That's correct.
The plan has to be pressure tested. It has to be battle tested. And it's always around the edges where the problems run out. I mean, everybody can come up with a 5-point plan, right? But what happens when point 1 doesn't go according to plan? How do you adjust point 2? And then point 2 means point 3 has to be adjusted. And maybe point 4 never happens. This is the kind of thing that we've found. I know Brian and I do this, and I think you do too, guide companies around these things. Because it always reminds me of like the Mike Tyson comment about everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. ChatGPT can give you a great plan. And by the way, we all use it for that. Yep. But when you get punched in the face, and every company does, that's when you have to pivot.
The other big one is
you're 100% correct. And I think that what we do is we bring that experience and that knowledge. And then, like I said, we help them solve problems faster than they would have been able to do on their own. And that's been a consistent theme in all the engagements that I've been in, is that, right? We could have done this work ourselves, but it would have taken us a lot longer. So let's take that 8-month learning and let's bring it down to 90 days, or let's take 90 days and let's get you value in 30 days. Those are the types of things that we get to do with wisdom.
Well, John, you're living the gig life. We appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us today. We got to wrap our Friday 20 plus at this point. But again, thanks so much. And we'll see you around the community, the Master B2B community.
I was just excited to be able to contribute to not hitting the 15-minute mark with the two of you. So we're continuing that trend rolling.
Well, we're very consistent. See ya. All right, Andy. So we got just a couple quick announcements to wrap our Friday 15 this week. Number one, we were just talking about the Nexus, which John is an executive advisor of. And, that's a good tangible demonstration of the kinds of things that, Nexus delivers. So as a Nexus member, you have access to John and other executive expert advisors who are available to you on call to help you with answering some of these very tough questions you have as a B2B executive. This is only for practitioners. It's a paid service. Go to our website, masterb2b.com, and check out Nexus, and you can learn more. We also have our forum, which is free for practitioners. It is practitioner only. We're getting conversations and questions and answers every single day on this thing. It's incredible. We encourage you to join that. Again, no cost. Go to masterb2b.com and click on forum, and you can apply for membership. And finally, want to remind everyone that our Friday 15 is available in podcast form, so you can listen while you're going to the bathroom, going for a hike, whatever. So check it out, and please give us a review. Andy, we're at Friday, 35 minutes or something. But any final words for the group here?
Yeah. So one thing, I think John made an interesting point about speed, which I've been trying to argue for years now. Executives do not understand. And maybe, just maybe, it popped into my head when John was saying this, maybe just maybe we need to start thinking about digital as having a price per hour. And what if you went to a CEO and said, do you realize you're spending $8,427 an hour on digital.
Right.
And this today, you produced $1,000 in revenue. If you were able to speed this up, if you were able to add this capability, you could lower the price you're spending and increase the revenue you spend. But maybe we have to put it in terms they understand like that, because they are, when you waste 6, 9, 12 months waiting to put somebody in place, that clock is ticking.
Yep. Arguments for the gig economy. Well, thank you for that comment, Andy. We got a wrap for this week. We will see you all next week on our next Friday 15.